Let's try this problem. So you have $1.55 in dimes and nickels in a jar. There are 23 coins in total. How many dimes do you have? How many nickels do you have? So this is a classic systems of equations problem, okay? Using money. I can't tell you how many problems I've done like this in my life. I've seen them in textbooks. I've seen them on worksheets. I've seen them everywhere, okay? And the good news is they're actually quite easy if you understand how they work. Now, when students see a lot of words, they get a little overwhelmed typically, okay? And I want to tell you that it's not that bad. Think about what this is saying. You've got $1.55, you've only got dimes and nickels, and you got 23 coins in total. How many dimes do you have? How many nickels do you have? That's what it's saying. So if you look at this and you say, I don't even know where to begin, I understand. But there's clues. But usually, and I can't say this for sure 100% of the time, but the vast majority of the time, the last sentence, and it's the sentence that's going to have the question, is going to tell you what your variables are. And if you label your variables immediately, it makes the problem easier to solve. So let's take a look at this. What does the last sentence say? Okay, how many nickels do you have? How many nickels do you have? Well, if you want to know how many nickels you have, you know one of your variables is going to be number of nickels. Now, some students like to use X and Y all the time. I personally like my variable to kind of match with what I'm solving for because for me, it helps me to remember it better as I'm working through the problem. So I'm going to use the variable N, and I'm going to say that N equals number of nickels. Okay? N equals number of nickels. And yes, don't do this in your head. Actually write it out, okay? Now, do I have another question in here? I do. And that other question is, how many dimes do you have? Okay? How many dimes do you have? So that's telling us that my other variable is going to be number of dimes because it says how many dimes. So what's the variable? The number of dimes. That's what you're solving for. So I'm going to call it D, okay? Number of dimes. Okay? Again, if you call this X and you call this Y, that's fantastic, and you do that. For me personally, I like to see N and D because it makes my life easier. Okay, so now that we know our variables, it becomes very easy to figure out what our two equations are going to be. So we're going to look for the other data that we have. And if I look at this question here, I see two numbers that are jumping out at me. The first number is 155, and the second number is 23. Okay, so let's see what those mean. So there are 23 coins in total. Okay, so let's just stop for a second and think about this. I have 23 coins in total. Okay, so if I'm putting out all the coins on the floor, I'm saying there's 23 of them. Now, let me look at my variables. Number of nickels and number of dimes. So if I'm putting all my coins on the floor, I know I have 23. That means the number of nickels I have plus the number of dimes that I have is going to equal 23. So there's your first equation right there, okay? So it's just going to be, I guess I'll write it down here. N plus D equals 23, okay? And we got that from the 23 up here and then the fact that we labeled our variables immediately, okay? Now, we've done the 23 piece, so check. Now, let's look at the 155. Okay, so 155 is going to be the value of the coins that I have, right? So think about it. How much is a dime worth? 10 cents or $0.1, right? So if you think about it, the amount of dimes I have, if I multiply that by 0.1, okay, that will give me the dollar value for the dimes that I have. And the same with the nickels, except it's 0.05. So I know that it's going to equal 155, okay, $1.55. And I can say to myself, well, if I take 0.05, 5 cents, okay, 0.05, and I multiply it by the number of nickels I have, so 0.05 times the number of nickels I have, plus 0.10 times the number of dimes that I have, you know what? I'm just going to erase that and make it a little bit bigger so we can see it better, just in case. So let me erase that. Okay. So again, if I say I've got 0.05 times the number of nickels that I have, okay, plus 0.10 times the number of dimes that I have, that's going to give me the total value, okay, of the coins. Because each nickel's 5 cents, okay, so for example, if I have 20 of them, I know I have $1, and each dime is 10 cents, so I know if I have 10 of them, I have $1, for example, okay? So what you're placing in front of the number of nickels is it's just the value of the nickel times the number that you have. The value of the dime times the number that you have, okay? There you go, and this is cake now, okay? Except the only thing I'm gonna say is that you're looking at this and we've got decimals, okay? And how many people love decimals? I think decimals are cool, but I understand I'm not in the majority with that opinion, okay? So I always tell students, if you don't like fractions or you don't like decimals, that's not a problem. You can just get rid of them. So think about it. If you multiply both sides by 100, you're gonna move this decimal over. You're gonna have 5n. You're gonna have 10d, and this is just gonna go to 155. So we might as well do that because it's gonna make our life a lot easier, okay? So you don't have to do any extra work with all of these decimals, okay? So I'm gonna take this and multiply it by 100, okay? Boop. And always draw in your lines. I can't tell you how many students do this and forget to draw the lines, and then this gets multiplied by 100, and oops, they forgot that, and they multiplied that by 100, okay? So make sure you draw those lines in. Okay, so 100 times 0.05 is all I'm doing is moving the decimal point. So that's just gonna be 5n, okay? And again, move the decimal point, 1, 2. That's going to be plus 10d, okay? And that's gonna equal, move the decimal point, 1, 2, 155. Okay, so now I have my two equations, and I know it's a little messy here, so I'll try to box them and then we'll move them. So here's my first equation, n plus d equals 23, and here's my second equation, okay? 5n plus 10d equals 155. So why don't we come up over here and do that? Okay, so n plus d equals 23, and 5n plus 10d equals 155. Okay. Now, at this point, I have two options. I can solve by substitution or I can solve by elimination. Theoretically, I could also solve by graphing, but substitution or elimination will be the fastest way since we're using a pen and paper right now, or pencil and paper. Okay, so what I could do is I could multiply this by -5 or -10, depending on what I want to do, okay? So let's say I were to multiply it by, -10 is probably the easiest, okay? So I multiply this by -10. And again, draw those arrows, please. Okay, so -10 times n is just going to be -10n. Okay, -10 times d is going to be -10d. Okay, and then 23 times -10 is just going to be -230. Okay, perfect. All right, now I just do the addition. So 5 plus -10, so 5n plus -10n, okay, is going to be -5n. Okay, these go away, perfect. And 155 plus -230. So there's a couple ways to kind of think about this. You could just do, 155 minus 230. You could do 230 minus 155 and just know that it's negative. So if you were to do 230 minus 155, okay, so you borrow here, you get 10 minus 5 is 5. This becomes a 2, 12 is 7, and then there you go. So you know it ends up being -75, okay? You could also just actually do the subtraction. You could use a calculator, whatever you want to do, however you want to do it. You can also solve by addition. You can say, how many do I need to get from 155 to 230, and that's going to be 75, but then it's negative because you're going negative. You know what I mean? There's a lot of ways to do that, but of course, if you just want to use a calculator, go for it. Okay, so now we have -5n equals -75. So we're just going to divide by -5. Divide by -5, okay? So then n is going to equal what? 15? Okay, so n equals 15. There you go. All right, so now I know the number of nickels that I have is 15, and now I want to find the number of dimes. Well, this is super easy because I'm going to erase this over here just so I have more room. okay? I know that I have 15 nickels. Oh, so the question is, how many dimes do I have? And I say to myself, well, one of my original equations, which I just erased over here, was n plus d equals 23. So if I know n is 15, I'm just doing 15 plus d equals 23, okay? So 15 plus what will give you 23? Well, that's easy. D is going to equal 8, okay? There you go. So you have now solved. You have 15, what was it? 15 nickels, right? Because that was n. Yep, 15 nickels and 8 dimes. Now, if you want to double check, you can say, all right, is it true that 15 plus 8 equals 23? And that is true. 15 plus 8 equals 23. Okay, 23 equals 23. Check. Okay, then you can check your second one, which is this $1.55? Okay, so if I have 15 nickels, I'm going to do 15 times 0.05, and then I have, what, 8 dimes? So then I'm going to do 8 times 0.10, and I want to know, does that equal $1.55? I know, okay, so this is going to be 15 times 5 cents is going to be 75 cents, okay, and then 8 times 10 cents is just going to be 80 cents, and we want to know, does that equal $1.55? Oops, so I should put a question mark over there because we're not sure. And then as you can see, I know I'm running out of room here, but 75 cents plus 80 cents is $1.55. Okay, so it worked. So we were able to check our work. So you are going to want to write this in a complete sentence. Okay, some teachers won't be as picky. They'll just want to see that you solved. But some teachers will be picky. Okay, I was actually one of those teachers who was picky. Okay, so I would say, well, I want to know in a complete sentence what you have, because in life, when you're doing things, you don't just walk up to somebody on the street and say n equals 15. They're going to be like, what are you talking about? So you need to put some context to it. So you're going to say, I have 15 nickels and 8 dimes. And that is your answer. Nice and boxed. So there you go.